and welcome to another episode of FooBar. In today's episode, we are going to learn about AWS Firehose. If you like to learn more about serverless, cloud computing, or software engineer practices in general, subscribe to my channel in the red button below. I post many videos every week. So let's get started. So this is the third episode on the series building serverless analytics pipelines. We have first learned about some of the concepts, then we have gone into talking about the client aspect on how we can create a client that can send analytics events using AWS Amplify. And now we need to set up our backend. So these last 3 remaining episodes are all about that. In this episode, we are going to build the Firehose and the storage for our events. If you do not remember what I'm talking about, go and check the first video and from there move to here. But we can do a refresh looking at the architectural diagram. You can see the first video is the amplify the client part, and this is the second video, the one that ingests the events using Firehose, and then the building the S3 buckets. So the first thing we are going to do is to learn a little bit about Firehose and why we are choosing that service for doing this, and then we are going to move to the demo in the second part of the video. So let's get to it. We saw this slide in the first video of this series when we introduced the stream ingestion services for AWS. Mostly we have 2 options for doing this: Kinesis Data Streams and Kinesis Data Firehose. Maybe they sound very similar, but they are quite different. Amazon Kinesis Data Streams is a massively scalable and durable real-time data streaming services. Data streams can continuously capture gigabytes of data per second from hundreds of thousands of sources such as websites, clickstream, databases, financial transactions, social media feed, IT logs, and whatever you imagine. The data collected is available in milliseconds to enable real-time analytics use cases such as real-time dashboards, real-time anomaly detection, and others. On the other hand, we have Kinesis Data Firehose, that is the easiest way to reliably load streaming data into data lakes, data stores, and other analytics tools. You can capture, transform, and load streaming data into Amazon S3, Redshift, Elasticsearch, and Splunk. And that enables real-time analytics with existing business intelligence tools and dashboards that you are using already. The cool thing of Kinesis Firehose is that it's a fully managed service that automatically scales to match the throughput of your data and requires no ongoing administration. It can also batch, compress, transform, and encrypt the data before loading it, minimizing the amount of storage used at the destination and increasing the security. By this time, you might be wondering which one should I choose. They sound very similar. So let's look at some of the main differences so you can decide which one is best suited for you, and you will realize how different they are. Let's look first at purpose. Data Streams is a low latency streaming service for ingesting data at scale, while Firehose is a data transfer service for loading streaming data into S3, Redshift, Elasticsearch, and others. Until here, it sounds very the same. But the more we go down in this list, the more you will see the difference. What is the processing time? The processing time for data streams is real time, around 200 milliseconds of latency, and it can go even lower. And for Firehose, it's near real time. You have to define what is the buffer size or the buffer time that you're getting those events. For scaling, in data streams, you need to know how many events are coming into your stream, and you need to configure the shards. If more data is coming, you need to reconfigure the shards later to tolerate that much traffic. For Firehose, it's automatically. It grows and shrinks with the demand automatically. Then we will talk about provisioning. When it comes to data streams, it's a managed service, but you need to configure the shards. But for Firehose, it's fully managed, no configuration needed. When we talk about the data storage, this is a very big difference. For data streams, it can be stored the events for 1 to 7 days. You can configure that. And for Firehose, there is no chance that you can store those events. And this allows you to have replay capability. In the case of data streams, you can replay all the events up to the time that you configure to be stored. So if you have any problems with your persistent storage, or you want to reprocess all the data for the last 7 days or something like that, you can do that. For Kinesis Firehose, the moment the event goes through, it goes through. And finally, we have the consumers. When we talk about data streams, it's open. You can have multiple types of consumers and destinations. And for Firehose, it's a closed-ended, and it's totally managed by Firehose, and we will see which are the different destinations that we can have. Now that we know what Firehose is, let's look at some of the benefits of using it. It provides a simple way to capture, transform, and load streaming data with a few clicks, and you can create the Firehose delivery stream, select which destinations you want, start sending data there in like no time. I will show you this in action in the demo in a second. This system will take care of all the stream management, the scaling, the sharding, the monitoring, everything is taken care of. It integrates with other AWS services automatically. It comes with integrations for S3, Redshift, Elasticsearch. So you can basically point that Firehose to an S3 bucket or to whatever, and then you can use your existing analytics tools to analyze that data. We will see that integration with S3, and from there we will see how to use it with Athena later on. It has serverless data transformation. It enables you to prepare your streaming data before it's loaded into the data store. You can convert the raw streaming data into other formats, and you can use Glue or you can use Lambda. And we will see this with an example of Glue in a future video. It's almost near real time. It's not real time. You have to define what is the buffer that you will consider that is acceptable for the amount of data that needs to be loaded in the stream before it's going to the destination. And I think the smallest one is 60 seconds. So that's something that you have to have in mind. And as always, you pay for how much you use. You pay for the volume of data that you transmit through the service and for the data conversion if you have that in place. There is no minimum fees or upfront commitments. So how it works, very simple. Firehose gets the events, ingests them from multiple data sources. It can be IoT devices, an app, a web page, whatever, anything that generates data. And the cool thing here is that Firehose will scale up and down depending on the amount of data that is being transferred. You don't need to worry about how much data is coming into your pipeline. And then when a fixed amount of time has passed or some kind of buffer, data buffer has been reached, then Firehose will process the events and send them to the destination that was configured. You can choose from Redshift, Kinesis Analytics, S3, and Elasticsearch as a destination. S3 is a great place if you're going to use Athena, for example, as we are going to use. Redshift is great if you have some kind of business intelligence team that you want to give access to the raw data. Elasticsearch if you have some flexible queries that you want to run, and things like that. So let's look at some use cases before moving on to the example. Some clear ones are IoT. You can capture data from connected devices as consumers, appliances, embedded sensors, TVs, whatever. And then you can provide customers real near-time access to metrics, insight and dashboards. Clickstream analytics, this is typical, that you are going to send analytics from your web app or your games or whatever to understand how your users use this application, and you can send that information to Firehose. You can send them compressed, and you can send them encrypted, however you like, and then you can basically aggregate, filter, process the data later in the backend. And finally, another use case is log analytics. You can send log information from different servers running in the cloud or on-premise to monitor your applications and troubleshoot them easier and faster. You can send them errors, for example, or monitoring information. And then the Firehose can basically send that to Elasticsearch, so you can visualize and analyze all these log analytics with Kibana. So those are some examples and some of the concept of what is Firehose. So in this video now we are going to focus on this part that you see here in the purple. We are going to create the Kinesis Firehose. We are going to store all our events in S3. And then we need also to create a Cognito identity pool, so our application can use those credentials to connect to our backend. So the first thing we are going to do is to create a Cognito user pool, and then we are going to move to the Kinesis Firehose. So let's go to the code. So I will do everything from the console, but for sure you can do this from CloudFormation. I will show you how to do that if you want in another video, so let me know in the comments if you're interested to see the CloudFormation of this. But let's create an entity pool for Cognito for our application. So the first thing we are going to go is in our console to Cognito, and there we are going to create manage identity pool. We are going to create a new identity pool, and then we have to put a name. I will go to put the name voting app and then identity pool. You have to use this lower dash for identity pool naming and enable access to authenticated identities, so then you don't need to have a username and password when you are giving access to the application. This will allow the unauthorized logins, basically all the guests. So now we have our identity pool, and we need to create these roles. The first one is the authenticated roles, and the one that is interesting to us is the unauthenticated roles. So we are going to give permission to this authenticated identity to basically put messages in Firehose. So we are going to define that in a second. So now that our roles are created, we can go to the dashboard, edit identity pool, and from there we can get the identity pool ID that we will put in our Amplify application in our exports, AWS export.js, so we can use it in a moment. And also we can put already the region that we are working in, that is Ireland. Now the next part is going to create the Firehose, and for that we are going to the management console and go to Kinesis, and in there we are going to get started, and we can see the 4 types of Kinesis streams that are available, and we are going to pick Firehose. There we need to put a name to our delivery stream. We are going to put the voting app for Firehose, and then we are going to basically pick the direct put, because that's what we are going to use. Basically we are using the AWS SDK to put. We don't want to encrypt this, so that's good. And here is some information on how we can send the information. We are going to put records, put batch records. Then it's asking us if we want to transform our source records with Lambda. If we enable, then we can choose a Lambda function. We will keep it disabled. And then if we want to convert the record format, and this is something we are going to do in the next video. This is happening with Glue. We are going to send JSON from our Amplify app to the backend, and then we are going to transform it to Parquet, but we are going to look at that in the next episode. For now, we keep it disabled. Then we need to decide what is our destination. We are going to use S3 to store our events. So we are going to keep that, but there you can choose Redshift, Elasticsearch, or Splunk. So that's basically how it goes. As you can see in that image, the Firehose to S3 data flow overview, basically all the events are coming in, and then you have the source record and the process records. So the source records are going to be saved in the destination folder, and then you can also back them up. So if something fails, you will have those records. We are going to do that in a second. So we are going to keep our destination, our original files as well. So we need to define a bucket for where we are going to put all these events. I already created a bucket called voting app analytics data. So you will need to create another one with a different name. And then I will put a prefix. I will call it destination, and there is where I will put all my incoming messages. Later on in the next video, we are going to create another bucket where we are going to save the events before they are processed, but that's something we cannot do now because we don't have process enabled. Basically, Firehose is going to get the events and save them in this destination folder. If there are errors, we need to have some kind of folder where we are getting the error messages. So we are also putting a folder there called error. And then whenever there is an error, we will see that. Then we can define the buffer conditions, and this is how much we need to wait in order for the messages to be sent to S3. You can see here that the buffer size is between 1 and 128 megabytes. If we choose 1, then the buffer will get full faster and it will go to S3 faster. And then we have this buffer interval that is between 60 and 900 seconds, and we are going to put 60. So how this works is if the buffer size gets filled first, then the messages will go to the S3. If nothing comes and the time passes, then even if there is a little message there, that will go to the S3. So I will just make the smallest possible so we have a real-time solution. Then we have this free compression and encryption. We are going to have that disabled, but you could have encryption and compression as well. And then we can have error logging. I have it enabled by default. And you need to create some IAM role that will create it automatically for you. Then we press next, and we can review our Kinesis Firehose stream. And if everything looks good, then we can continue to the next page. This is basically getting all the events and save them in S3, nothing else. So now our status of our delivery stream is getting created, and it takes a few seconds that will happen. In the meantime, we can grab that name of that Kinesis Data Firehose and put it in our Amplify application. And we are going to put that name in our file AWS export in our Amplify application. And now we can also change the Cognito identity pool permissions for the unauthorized user to be able to put messages in that Kinesis Firehose. So for that, we need to go to the IAM management console and look for the role. I will search voting app because that's the name of our role, Cognito voting app unauthorized, and there I will go and edit the policy. I will do edit the policy, and I will add additional permissions to the service Firehose, and then I will put record and put batch, and then I also list the delivery streams, and then I will define the ARN for our delivery stream that we just create, and we can get the ARN from the Kinesis Firehose page, and then we are ready. Now our Cognito identity pool unauthorized access will have access to put messages in this Firehose. So now our client is ready, and if we go to our React app and we start sending messages, we will see that the messages are going to our backend, and the Cognito is returning a 200 because it has all the permissions they need, and Firehose is also getting a 200 because it's receiving those events with no problem. So that's good. We can see there that some event has been sent. And then if we go to the monitoring, we can see that some events have been incoming from the messages. We have sent one event, the PHP. So, and then if we go to S3, we can see there the bucket, and we can see there is something in the destination folder as well. So the destination folder is sorted by the year, month, date, hour, and there you can download the a JSON file, for example, and you can see the events that you have been sending if you're interested in. So in this case, we only have the PHP, the message that our Amplify application is sending to our backend. So that's basically it for this part of the video. In the next part, we are going to see how we can change the format of these events. That was the video for today. I hope you like it. If you did, give us a big thumbs up and remember to subscribe to this series. There are a couple more videos coming out, so this is going to be pretty nice full pipeline for you. You might be wondering why I didn't use infrastructure as code to build this pipeline, because it's easier to show it to you this way. But if you want to see how to use infrastructure as code to build a pipeline, let me know in the comment box below and I can make a faster video on just building the infrastructure as code for this particular pipeline, so you can replicate it yourself. In the next episode, we are going to talk about the processing part. We are going to talk about Glue, so stay tuned for that. And around here, there are other videos from my channel for you to watch, so go ahead and click. You can find the latest video and also the one that YouTube thinks is the most appropriate for you, so go ahead and click on them. If not, I'll see you next week with another episode of FooBar. Ciao, ciao!